Real talk, guys. Have you ever seen a ghost or a UFO? Did you ever sense something bad is about to happen, or maybe something good? And what you imagined in that moment really happened? Do you believe in Bigfoot or Nessie, the monster of Loch Ness? Do you truly believe there is more in this world than what you can touch with your hands or see with your own eyes? Then this little podcast might be the right one for you. I'm no scientist, nor a doctor. No, I'm just curious. Hi, my name is Daniel. Welcome to my podcast. Guys, my podcast is about all that stuff that most of the people out there don't even believe in, or maybe they don't think about it. Because if you're busy with work, school, house and kids and stuff, you don't have the time to think about UFOs, aliens or ghosts and paranormal stuff. I absolutely get that. I'm a father myself and I have to go to work. But in my free time, I find it very relaxing to think and talk about all that stuff. I love to read articles and I really love to read books about it. But what I love the most is when people tell me their stories. And that's why I started this podcast. And on my podcast, I had people telling me the craziest stories. But when I say crazy, I don't mean crazy in a bad way. Those people are highly interesting. And I never tell those people I believe you or I do not believe you. What I believe, I keep that to myself. I just want those people to have a platform to share their story. Sometimes when an interview is over, people say to me, "Thank you so much for having me. It felt so good to finally tell my story." And I do believe that, because there's people out there who experience strange stuff and they're afraid to talk about their relatives or friends about it. And I know what I'm talking about because I experienced one or two strange things myself and it took me a very long time to freely talk about it. And this is exactly what this podcast is for. But the bummer is, this podcast is 90% in German. Because I am German and the majority of my audience is German speaking. So yeah, but now and then I produce a short podcast in English. And today I want to tell you about some interesting guests that have been on my show lately. Let's start with Markus Ilewski. Markus writes book about the Untersberg. The Untersberg is a big mountain who sits on top of the border between Germany and Austria, meaning one half is in Germany, the other half is in Austria. There are many mystic stories surrounding the Untersberg, but the Untersberg is most notorious for its time anomalies. There are people that claim that they have been trapped in one of those time anomalies. So there's a story about this one guy who went to the Untersberg with his daughter. They were hiking around and having a great time for a while, but suddenly the daughter disappeared, although she was just a few feet behind him, he claimed. He panicked and ran around, calling her name, but she was nowhere to be found. He searched the area for 2 or 3 minutes before he heard the voice of his daughter behind him saying, "Hey, what's wrong?" He turned around and said, "Where have you been? I was looking for you." And she said, "I've been here all the time. I just kneeled down to pick a flower." Another story was experienced by Markus Ilewski himself. He went to the Untersberg with a friend to explore different areas. And before they separated, they talked about where and when they will meet. In this case, it was the local gas station at 9 p.m. Long story short, at 9 p.m. Markus was waiting for his friend at that gas station, but his friend never came. He waited for another hour and then he went out to look for his friend at that area his friend was exploring. But he couldn't find him, and because it was getting dark already, Markus was afraid that something bad could have happened to his friend. And so he called the police. But the police told him that there is not much they can do because his friend is an adult and missing for less than 24 hours. So Markus went home. And after a sleepless night, he came back to the Untersberg to continue the search for his friend. He searched the area until it was getting dark again, and suddenly his cell phone rang. And when he picked up the phone, he heard the voice of his friend saying he was at the gas station and waiting for Markus. Markus said, "Oh my god, are you okay? I was looking for you for almost 24 hours. And his friend said, "What you talking about? I'm here at the gas station. It's 9 o'clock. Well guys, what do you think? Do you believe these stories? I'm a little bit skeptical, but I learned that nothing is impossible. And fact is that stories like this surrounding the Untersberg for hundreds of years already. And this was just a little bitty piece about the Untersberg phenomenon. There is so much more about it. And if you want to learn more about the Untersberg, well, then I guess you have to buy one of Marcus' books, but unfortunately it's only available in German. But maybe I will make another podcast about it. Let me know if you're interested. Another interesting guest was Werner Beetz, who wrote a book about the story of Jean de Renier, and I call this episode Lilor, the physicist from space. After Jean de Renier died, he left a booklet with handwritten records which he claimed was dictated to him by an alien UFO commander named Lilor, whom he met over and over again during his wanderings through the French Pyrenees. What's so special about these records is that they are largely mathematical and physical formulas and explanations that Jean could not even know at the time. What do you think about this, guys? Do you think it's possible that an alien UFO commander gets in contact with a human being to talk about physical and mathematical formulas? I don't know what to think about this one, but I love to listen to stories just like this. And then there was this guy who claims that he gets abducted by aliens since he was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. And to most of us out there, that alone sounds pretty strange already. And although his story started a little bit funny, it was a pretty unusual and extraordinary story. As I mentioned already, it all started when he was 6 or 7 years old, and he was told by his parents to bring a bag of trash outside into the trash can. So he told me that he went outside and walked to the trash bin, which was only a few feet away from the front door. And when he arrived at the trash bin, he was scared straight, because besides the trash bin, he saw someone standing. And here comes the funny sounding part. Because what he saw was Santa Claus. You heard it right. Santa Claus, standing there with a serious face impression. And Santa Claus was pointing at the sky. And when he looked at the sky, he saw a very bright light ball. A light ball hovering in the sky. And suddenly, this one light ball became 2 light balls. And that's when he ran back inside the house. I have to admit, when I first heard that story, I couldn't help myself but smile a little bit, because it sounds a little bit funny with that Santa Claus and stuff. But then I thought, this guy was 6 or 7 years old when it happened. Maybe, in case all that really happened, his brain tried to save him from harm. It projected a picture of Santa Claus because it tried to protect him from seeing what was really standing there. But I'm not a psychologist. This is just a humble guess. But there's more to this story. He said that a few years went by without any experience of that kind. Until one day when he had a sleepover at his grandparents' house. He said that in the middle of the night he was woken up by a strange bright light, and he felt that he wasn't in his room anymore. So he woke up, and he said that his bed was surrounded by strange-looking creatures, and he couldn't tell what they were at first because their appearance was very blurry. He told me he was very afraid, and I understand that. But when the picture of these creatures got clearer, the fear turned into confusion, because these creatures appeared to be penguins. And when he said that, I had to smile again. But he told me he was 11 at that point, and he was still a child. And as I said earlier, maybe his brain tried to protect him from harm. If it wasn't for Santa Claus or the penguins, this could be a textbook alien abduction story. But it's different. Long story short, he told me that this went on and off for many years. And he also told me that he's well aware of how strange that sounds and how funny that sounds, but he claims that this really happened. And it wasn't always Santa Claus or penguins. There were more mythical creatures that visited him throughout the years. Mythical creatures he knew from books and movies. Another thing is that they never really did something to him. They would just stand there and watch him. And then one day, so he told me, it wasn't mythical creatures anymore. It wasn't Santa Claus or penguins anymore. From that day on, every time he got a visit, he saw grey aliens. I think a lot about this guy, and I think he was very honest, and you could tell by the way he talked and acted that he went through a lot. Maybe all the things he told me about just exist in his head. Maybe it's a psychological problem. Or maybe it's real. Who knows? Who am I to judge? I'm just here to tell the story. But I'm interested in your opinion. What do you think about all this? If you want, let me know. Write me a message on Instagram. Just look for Observe the World. And if you like what I do, you can support me by following me on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and more. Thank you so much for listening. And wherever you are, have a great day.